Two dwarfs decided to take a break from their usual routines and chose Las Vegas as their destination for some excitement and a change of scenery. Upon arriving, they checked into a grand hotel and decided to start their adventure at the hotel bar. There, they struck up a conversation with two charming women, and they all got along quite well. The dwarfs and the women decided to continue their evening together, exploring the vibrant city. As the night progressed, each dwarf invited one of the women to his respective hotel room for a more private setting. However, the first dwarf faced an unexpected problem in his room. Despite his best efforts, he found himself physically unable to be intimate with his date. This embarrassing situation became even more awkward when he overheard sounds from the next room, where he heard a rhythmic count. 1, 2, 3. This continued throughout the night. The next morning, both dwarfs met up to discuss their nights. The second dwarf asked the first about his experience, and the first dwarf, feeling downcast, confessed that it was a total disaster. Despite his efforts, he couldn't achieve an erection. Sympathetic, the second dwarf then shared his own experience from the night, revealing, "You think that's embarrassing? I couldn't even get on the bed." In a charming little town, there resided an elderly gentleman who had lived a long and joyful life. Now, at an age where memories often overshadowed his day-to-day activities, he found amusement in simple pleasures like the game of golf and the camaraderie of his old friends at the club. One bright and cheerful morning, he strolled into the local drugstore, a place almost as familiar to him as his own home. The bell above the door chimed, announcing his arrival, and he was warmly greeted by the pharmacist, a younger man who had taken over the family business and knew the gentleman well. "Morning, George. What brings you in today?" asked the pharmacist with a friendly smile. George, the elderly gentleman, leaned on the counter and whispered, "I'm here for something a bit special. You know, the little blue pill, Viagra." The pharmacist, slightly surprised but unfazed, responded, "Of course. How many are you thinking?" George, still leaning on the counter, replied with a grin, "Oh, just a few, maybe 6 or so. I cut each one into 4 parts, you see." The pharmacist raised an eyebrow. "George, that's a very small dose. I'm not sure that will quite assist you in the way Viagra is intended." The old man leaned in even closer and shared, "You see, young man, I'm way past my 80th year on this earth, and the passions of the flesh don't quite stir me as they used to. All I want is for it to stick out just enough so I don't pee on my new golf shoes." A large number of viewers watch my videos without a subscription. Therefore, subscribe to my channel so as not to miss new videos with funny jokes. Roger, a diligent worker, spends most of his nights engaged in activities like bowling or playing volleyball. However, one weekend, his wife decides it's time for Roger to set aside his sports gear and experience a different kind of leisure, one involving less sweat and more sparkle. Determined to surprise him, she plans an outing without revealing the destination, but instructs him to trade his sneakers for shoes with a bit more shine. The surprise location turns out to be a strip club. As they're about to enter, Roger spots someone he knows and warmly greets, "Hey, Roger, how's your evening shaping up?" Taken aback, Roger's wife questions if he has been to this place before. With a nervous chuckle, Roger explains that the person is just someone from his bowling team. Inside the club, the music surrounds them, and they find a seat. A waitress approaches with a twinkle in her eyes, addressing Roger. "Always a pleasure to see you, Roger." The usual gin and tonic. Roger insists that she's also part of the volleyball team. Trying to find their rhythm in this unexpected setting, a dancer approaches Roger and enthusiastically exclaims, "Ready for your regular table dance?" This becomes the tipping point for Roger's wife. Filled with barely contained fury, she storms out, with Roger following suit. Managing to catch the same cab, his wife looks at him with seething anger and unleashes her frustration. At this moment, the cab driver leans over and remarks, "Sure looks like you picked up a lively one tonight, Roger." One day, a firefighter, having completed his challenging shift, returned home to his wife. Inspired by the organized procedures at the fire station, he decided to bring some of that regimented order into their household. Speaking to his wife, he said, "You know, we have a truly remarkable system at the fire station, a process that allows us to react quickly to emergencies. When bell 1 rings, we know it's time to don our protective jackets. When bell 2 rings, it's our cue to slide down the pole. And when bell 3 rings, we immediately embark upon the fire trucks, ready to brave the flames. From this point onward, I propose we operate our home in a similar fashion. When I call out bell 1, I would like you to gracefully shed all your clothes. When I announce bell 2, I want you to playfully leap into bed. And when I say bell 3, we will engage in a session of passionate lovemaking." The next evening, the firemen returned home from work, excited to put their new plan into action. With a slightly mischievous twinkle in his eye, he announced, "Bell 1." In response, his wife coquettishly removed her attire. Following the command bell 2, his wife leapt into their bed. Bell 3 signaled the commencement of their passionate dance of love. However, after a mere 2 minutes, his wife cried out in a voice that was half mocking, half playful, "B for the fireman." Taken aback, asked in confusion, "Wait a minute, what on earth is bell 4? His wife, with a cheeky smile, replied, "More, honey, you're nowhere near the end." One week, Tom enlists in the Army and undergoes basic training. During the rifle distribution, he ends up at the back of the line, and by the time they reach him, they've run out of rifles. The sergeant hands him a stick and instructs him to pretend it's a rifle. Undeterred, Tom engages in the mock battle, running around, pointing his stick and shouting, "Bangity bang bang bang!" The following week, during bayonet training, Tom faces a similar predicament as they run out of bayonets before reaching him. Once again, the sergeant advises him to pretend, this time with a bayonet at the end of his imaginary rifle. Tom enthusiastically participates in the mock battle, yelling, "Bangy bang bang bang," and "Stabby stab stab stab," as he charges through. After completing basic training, the unit is deployed into real battle. However, Tom still hasn't been given a real rifle, and he finds himself on the beach with only his stick. Uncertain about what to do, he mindlessly points his stick at an enemy soldier on a hill, shouting, "Bangy bang bang bang," and to his surprise, the enemy falls over dead. Encouraged, Tom continues using his stick, yelling both, "Bangity bang bang bang," and "Stabby stab stab stab." Enemy soldiers fall one after another as Tom runs along, pointing and shouting. In a crucial moment, an enemy soldier walks slowly along a path, and Tom carefully aims his stick, yelling, "Bangity bang bang bang." However, the enemy soldier keeps approaching. Tom tries again with "Stabby stab stab stab," but the soldier runs over him, crushing him. As Tom lies dying, he hears the enemy soldier muttering, "Tanky tank tank." A lawyer returned home very late after an incredibly exhausting day, desperately trying to prevent a client's execution. Despite his efforts to secure mercy from the governor at the last moment, he faced disappointment. Tired and saddened, he entered his house to the complaints of his wife, who questioned the lateness of his arrival, criticized the cold dinner, and showed little empathy. Exhausted, and not in the mood for the usual arguments, the lawyer poured himself a glass of whiskey and sought solace in a long, warm bath. While he immersed himself in the tub, his wife continued with her sarcastic comments. Unbeknownst to him, the telephone rang, and his wife answered the call, learning the surprising news that the lawyer's client, James Wright, had been granted mercy. The execution was halted, and he wouldn't face hanging that evening. Realizing the challenging day her husband had faced, she thought of sharing the good news to lift his spirits. Opening the bathroom door, she found her husband unclothed, bending down to dry his legs and feet. Attempting to convey the positive news, she cheerfully exclaimed, "They're dining right tonight." Startled, he turned around and emphatically responded, "For the love of God, woman, don't you ever stop." An elderly priest had grown weary of hearing confessions of adultery from members of his parish. One Sunday, during his sermon, he declared, "If I hear one more confession of adultery, I'll resign." Since he was beloved by all, they devised a code word to address the issue, fallen. From then on, those who had committed adultery simply confessed to having fallen. This arrangement worked well for both the aging priest and his congregation, ensuring peace for many years. However, after the elderly priest passed away at the remarkable age of 93, a new, younger priest took his place. The new priest decided to pay a visit to the mayor and expressed his concerns. He said, "Mayor, something must be done about the sidewalks in our town. You wouldn't believe how many individuals come into the confessional speaking of having fallen." The mayor began to chuckle, realizing that no one had informed the new priest about the code word. But before he could explain, the priest playfully pointed his finger at the mayor and remarked, "I don't see why you're laughing. Your wife fell 3 times just last week." Mr. Fenwood has a cow with no pasture, so he strikes a deal with his neighbor, Mr. Potter, to graze the cow in Potter's field for $200 per month. Despite several months passing, Fenwood hasn't paid Potter a dime. After 10 months, Potter confronts Fenwood about the unpaid debt. "Look, you owe me $2,000, and it seems you're not keen on settling our agreement. Considering that's roughly the value of the cow, why not just give me the cow and we'll consider the debt settled?" After a brief pause, Fenwood responds, "Let the cow stay 1 more month and we've got a deal." In the dead of night, a cunning burglar decides to break into a serene home, taking the husband and wife residing there as hostages. He commands them to sit back to back on chairs and tightly binds them, ensuring they are out of his way. With them securely restrained, he systematically begins to ransack the house, collecting anything valuable he comes across. Once he has gathered all the prized items, he prepares to make his exit, leaving the homeowners tied to their chairs. As he is about to leave, the desperate man calls out to the burglar, pleading, "Please, I beg you, untie her, set her free." The thief, devoid of sympathy, responds coldly, "No way. I can't risk untying either of you. I want to make sure the police find out as late as possible. Don't worry, though. Your neighbors will surely notice your light still on in the middle of the night and come to check on you before dehydration becomes an issue." Ignoring the burglar's justification, the man pleads once more, "Please let her go. I'm begging you. She won't call the police, I swear." The burglar maintains his stance, stating, "I can't risk my freedom. I'm sorry. I need to make a clean getaway." The frantic man edges his chair closer to the burglar and cries out, "I'm begging you, just let her go. I promise she won't call the police." Surprised by the man's desperation, the burglar comments, "Wow, you must really love your wife to beg so fervently for her release." The man in a frenzy responds, "No, that's not it. My wife will be home in 15 minutes.